Hello and welcome to episode 18 of Entertainment of Excellence, the podcast where we talk about films, TV, all of it. Hi, I'm Ollie.
I'm Thom.
And I'm Ben.
And today we're going to be discussing the 2007 film No Country for Old Men. This will contain spoilers.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, so I guess I'll give a brief plot summary. So it's about a man called Llewelyn. What a silly name, Llewelyn Moss. And he basically stumbles across a drug deal gone bad. So there's a lot of dead people sitting around in trucks. And he finds a lot of money in a suitcase. And it basically follows him trying to actually keep the money while also not dying as he's hunted down by this mysterious figure called Anton Chigurh.
Sugar.
Anton Chigurh, yeah. And there's also a sheriff, Ed Thom, after him, and a hitman who I can't remember the name of, but he's played by Woody Harrelson, trying to kill Anton Chigurh. And a lot of bad things happen, and a lot of people die.
That is what happens.
That is what happens.
Yeah.
It's quite slow-paced, but it uses that to its advantage with a lot of, like one of the scenes, the motel scene is, it's a slow-paced scene, but it's extremely tense. Like it's almost palpable, the tension. Like I was just waiting for Llewelyn to get killed or to kill Anton. It's so like, ooh, you know?
Yeah.
Do you agree?
I indeed do agree.
Because there's not that much plot to say. That it's a 2-hour film and it sort of relies on that slow pace and that tension I think that's what's most effective about it.
Did you think it felt like 2 hours? Because I actually felt like it went by quite quickly.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I said when we were watching it is it almost feels like it's going to come to the climax about halfway through the film.
Yeah.
In that scene in the motel, as you were saying. But I don't know, I think in the last half an hour, for me at least, it sort of fizzled out a bit. And
You mean when he died?
Yeah, I wasn't as engaged after sort of the drama started to be reduced.
I found it quite interesting that they kind of just kill Llewelyn, who felt like the protagonist, kind of off screen and about half an hour before the end, maybe 25 minutes. But I think it kind of goes in line with what it's trying to say about there being a lack of justice, and fate will always win in the end, because there's this whole thing about Anton doing the coin toss to tell whether people will live or not, but it doesn't feel like it depends on the coin toss. It feels like whatever's going to happen will happen anyway.
Yeah.
I thought that the coin toss would be quite a big feature in it, but it was only, what was it, used 2 times?
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought it would sort of run throughout, and I mean, it doesn't show him kill. It shows him kill quite a few people, maybe not as many as some sort of psychopaths in films, but I thought that would be a reoccurring thing. And obviously it's quite pivotal at the end, but the only time you actually see the result of the coin toss, he actually ends up not killing the person.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were kind of expecting to see that a lot more in the film, definitely, because it felt like it was going to be his big thing. And if it was in a shorter movie, I guess I'd understand that it wouldn't play as much of a pivotal role, but it was kind of odd seeing it just a couple of times. In the second one, you kind of assume what happens, but you don't know for certain.
Yeah, I kind of liked it wasn't overused as a gimmick.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it was used like a year later in The Dark Knight with Two-Face, But I think it makes sense. It's used in the points where you feel like the outcome is inevitable anyway, which is quite interesting. And also, I don't see him stopping in front of the Mexican gangsters to flip a coin before just shooting them down while they're standing there with submachine guns. So
Yeah, but I think one of the interesting things about him is he has a lot of sort of unique and distinguishable things about him. So he has the coin toss. He has like a modified oxygen tank that he uses to basically break through locks, and he's got quite that sort of that presence, that like enigmatic, and he's there with his suppressed shotgun, and sort of in the last scene when you see him sitting in the dark, I think a lot of the factors like that sort of enhance his him feeling like an antagonist. And I understand that like the coin thing wouldn't always have worked too well, but I think that's one of the factors that sort of identifies him.
Yeah.
I think he's kind of used as a symbol for the, I don't know, maybe how unjust fate feels to people, because obviously it ends in Ed Thom resigning his post as a sheriff, which means he feels like he can't enact justice anymore. And it's kind of just showing this Anton going around killing people like wherever for seemingly no reason. And I don't know, it could just be that he's supposed to be this cool hitman, but it also could be the Coen brothers maybe even angry at how things just seem to happen and there's no way to stop them.
Yeah.
But again, it could also just be a cool character.
I mean, I guess it's probably going to be a bit of both, because you're trying to, well, the Coen brothers were trying to create a cool, recognizable character, but there was definitely like some messaging behind it, and yeah, like a sense of anger at how things are not decided like always rationally. It's just based more on, well, I guess chance, and especially in this film, chance is like a big theme with like the coin toss and just like the.
I mean, he just stumbles across the money, doesn't he?
Yeah,
He's not like
Yeah, but as well as chance, I'd say something that links to the coin toss and him finding the bag of money is also a theme of like fate and inevitability, that he's almost destined to die and he's just sort of delaying the inevitable from running from
Yeah.
the
hitman.
Because he even says, Anton even says, like, you can save your wife, but I'm not going to pretend that you will be able to live.
Yeah.
So it was kind of his fate all along that he was just going to get killed. And bearing in mind, it just happened because he was out hunting deer or something. I don't actually know what it was. And then he just stumbled across this money, and it kind of just, from there, it was a downward spiral until his death.
Yeah, and in a way, him running away from that inevitable murder is almost seen as selfish, because you have quite a lot of people along the way sort of getting caught in the crossfire, and as a result of him, well, I guess you might think that if like you turned yourself in, then you might be treated with some justice, but I don't think that would happen in the case of Sugar.
Yeah, it was. I think Woody Harrelson had, well, his character had said that he doesn't abide by conventional rules. He's very much his own man, and will, like, if you turn yourself in, he would still kill you for the inconvenience, I think was the line.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's definitely about delaying the inevitable with him. And also, I get the impression that he was, like, incredibly, well, maybe powerful, maybe like the sense of power or control that he had was exaggerated through like the cinematography and everything, but you always felt that he was like this sort of unstoppable force. He got hit a couple of times, but you know, he was able to walk away from it, and he felt like this oncoming danger that, like, when you think about it, is just one man with an oxygen tank and a coin and a silenced shotgun. He's really not the most imposing thing, but is the sort of air he carries around with him.
Yeah, I mean, he's acted really well to come off with that imposing presence. And I mean, there's also that line by Woody Harrelson that says, like, when Llewelyn says that he'd run into him, he's like, you're still alive? And the actor does really well. What's he called again? He should really be credited. I think he should be credited before Tommy Lee Jones, but he just does really well. He will always feels unpredictable, even though you know he's just going to kill everyone. And I don't know how he manages to do it. Javier Bardem, probably butchered his name, but it's really good performance. I mean, all the acting is very good. Josh Brolin kind of just trying to get away with whatever he can, and Tommy Lee Jones is usually pretty good at doing a kind of self-reflecting, helps when he can, old sheriff. Usually good at the older characters.
Yeah, well, I think that element of like enigma and imposing threat is also something that I know the TV show Fargo, based on the Coen Brothers film. But in the first season of that, you have again.
Malvo.
Yeah, he's the similar sort of threatening character, which you don't know much about. I don't know if it's just the way that the dialogue sort of kept to a minimal, which makes it more impactful when you have these antagonists speaking, because you're never too sure what's driving them, and you don't really you're sort of able to relate to them, but in a weird way, because you're always scared of them.
Yeah, the Coen Brothers are very good at doing characters that are more symbols than characters, if you know what I mean. So
Yeah,
obviously with Fargo, and they also really like their not necessarily always an everyman, but a kind of normal person getting tangled up in something they don't properly understand. So in Fargo, in the film as well as the series, it's kind of like this normal guy that ends up killing someone or kidnapping someone, I think, in the film. The film's a bit hazy from what I remember. And in like The Big Lebowski, they get caught up in a different Lebowski's debt, and this gang who's kidnapped his wife. And in Burn After Reading as well, these people just kind of stumble onto some CIA intelligence that isn't actually CIA intelligence, but that's kind of their thing. And they always do it really well, but seem to make it fresh every time, which is quite interesting. So this is obviously one of their newer versions of that theme, but
yeah,
they do really well to make the kind of neo-Western thing come off. So, you know, some of the shots will be very reminiscent of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, if you've seen them, and it's slow pacing as well. And there's some great shots of the desert, and it does really well doing kind of slow pace but really high tension scenes, which are a staple of Western films.
Yeah. Well, one of the things about the fact that a lot of the main characters are sort of getting caught up in things outside of their control and things they're not about, that also links with fate, because destined to fail, because Chigurh, that's just what I'm gonna call him, he's obviously got a lot of experience in this field, so you always feel that they're destined to be caught or killed, because they've just stumbled across this money, and they've stumbled across this trade that they're not knowledgeable about themselves.
Yeah.
Even though you know it's going to go wrong, though, it doesn't stop it from. You're still rooting for them, and you still think, oh, maybe there's a chance. Maybe they're going to get the coin flip right, you know. And so you are still rooting for them, which keeps the tense scenes tense, which is kind of makes me feel like that's why his death happened off screen, because it's like, well, that's just how it is. You knew he was going to die, and I don't know. I mean, I still would have liked to have seen him die, to be honest, because obviously those scenes were just really great and
Yeah.
exhilarating.
Well, I guess maybe the Coen Brothers felt that couldn't sort of fulfill that. They like maybe they felt that they didn't have something unique to show, so they didn't just want to. They thought it would be more mysterious if they left it up to interpretation, and they sort of didn't explicitly reveal how he died.
Yeah. That makes sense, because they do the same with his wife.
Yeah, so it's up to the viewer.
It sounds like in the novel it is just kind of said that she dies, or possibly, because from an analysis of the novel it just said after murdering Cara Jean, I think she's called. So I assume, so you basically assume that she did murder him, and the ending really plays on that lack of justice theme, with not only the sheriff Ed Thom retiring, but also, you know, at the end, I was even like, come on, just let this guy die. He's so awful. And then he gets hit by a car, and you're like, yes, maybe, but he's still alive, and he just gets these kids to help him, and he's, you know, broken his bone, but he just gets to walk away free, and still no justice has happened.
I can see why that ending could fall flat for some viewers, but it does definitely play into that theme of lack of justice and the fact that almost the bad guys always triumph.
I always like endings that are more open-ended, though, because you get to talk about them more. You know, obviously there are some films that need the ending that they do, like, you know, Return of the Jedi. Luke has to defeat the Emperor. You know, Lord of the Rings, they're always going to throw the ring into Mount Doom. But films that have more open endings are quite interesting, or even endings that kind of happen and it is closed, but are kind of weird or have some new twists thrown in. I do like ones that have discussion and present their themes well. Which relates to a recommendation I have, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. Well, speaking of making tense scenes more tense, why don't we talk about the music, or lack of it?
Yeah, there seems to be a very minimal use of music. I thought at the start, I was like, they're not using much music at all, and then realised at the end that I didn't remember any, but you said there was, and there was someone credited doing the music, so I assume there was some.
Yeah, there was a little bit at the start when he was first discovering the money, I think, or was it before that?
It was very early on.
Yeah.
Sure.
It was just some very, very basic, like, ambient chords, so really nothing very much. The focus was very much on the sound design, I guess, of the environment. And I guess that kind of the lack of music did sort of help with, like, the realism of it, I suppose, and especially I found the scene where Ed Thom was talking to that guy about, like, the hostility of the country and everything. That felt a lot more impactful on me as a viewer without any music, because, you know, both of them were really great actors, and they kind of conveyed all of the emotion themselves rather than needing any music to
without
enhance it.
Music telling you how to feel. And there are some films, I can't remember right now, but there are some films that are guilty of the actual monologue isn't really saying anything, but then the music is like really emotional and things,
bombastic.
It really helps with the lack of music, because the Coen Brothers really like there's quite often they'll have long monologues in between, or in the more serious ones they'll have long monologues by characters, or even in their less serious ones, although they're usually some guy that represents an immortal being if you look into it, but in this one it is a more normal person, and they like the monologues talking that kind of describe the themes but without an obvious way, which is quite interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think with a lot of, like, the monologues or anecdotes, well, especially near the end, as you say, if the use of music could either make it a bit cliche, or it could almost, like, as you say, tell you how to feel.
Yeah.
But I think it's more gripping that there isn't any music because it's the minimalism and the realism of it, and it really helps you see the perspective of the characters, and it also helps enhance the like mystery of Chigurh because you're listening to every word he says, and it's not getting drowned out by music. I mean, it's ironic that a lot of it for me it didn't get drowned out, but just like the accents of all the Americans was sometimes a bit unclear.
Yeah.
But I mean,
it's Texan, so they're always pretty difficult to understand. But it's quite interesting thinking back on that first monologue because he talks about a guy who's is herding cows or something. It's really they use weird. They're called like steers or something. They use weird words for livestock. But and it talks about how he shoots it in the head, but the bullet glanced off and hit him in the shoulder, and that he can't move his arm. And he says that even when it's man versus animal, and the man's got a gun, it's still unclear what will happen, which is kind of about the chance of things. So, whether there is fate of something is definite, but also it can just be random chance, and it might be unfair for people.
Yeah.
There's also, and then the second monologue is also about. It's also unfairness, but he's talking about how things have gone wrong, I believe, or things have changed from how they used to be. So there's also themes of nostalgia, No Country for Old Men, and how things have changed to the older generation, which is why I feel like they chose to do a Western film in a more modern setting. It was made in 2007, but set in 1980. So it's, I'm talking about how things change, but really how they change. They seem to be very similar in how they're done or how things are.
Yeah.
You get to see it's still 1980s. It's not even present day, and see that it's not too different. The technology's not there, but it's not a completely unfamiliar society.
Yeah. Yes. Well, what did you think of the cinematography?
I thought it was great because obviously, usually Western films have good cinematography with the nice wide shots of the desert, and also manage to keep it up close and intense for the action scenes as well.
Yeah.
And it's action scenes where it's really tense, but the fact that I didn't really notice the editing throughout is a good thing, I feel.
Yeah.
Where nothing was jarring or out of place, and it was coherent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely felt that with a lot of shots. There was something subtle I just kind of picked up on was that a lot of the close-up shots, it didn't really feel like it was cutting to them. It felt like if you were a third person in the room, that's just where your eyes would be drawn to. So there wasn't like there was a cut, but you didn't really notice it.
That makes sense.
And also there was this one particular shot where Chigurh was opening a lot of drawers in a chest of drawers in the room, and it sort of slowly panned up, which was, I don't know, it just was very subtle, but
yeah.
I enjoyed the fact that it naturally followed it rather than just staying static. Like the little bit of motion sort of drew more attention to it, but in a coherent manner rather than expecting your eyes to do the work.
I like the shot with when he's like transporting the money between the motel rooms, and you sort of see that long passage of like looking into the air vent. I think quite a lot of the times in films they sort of use motels as a centre of, I don't know, like killings or because like instability, I guess. And I think quite a lot of the shots at that motel, like also at the end when they go back and it's like the crime scene, and quite a lot of the times when you can see Sugar like in the dark or leering around the corner or something, that definitely helps like make him more threatening.
And they also do well at the points that it's kind of from Llewelyn, where even though you've seen him, he's still like an unknown evil force. So when he's got out of the motel, he's kind of getting shot at from unseen places, and he gets into a truck and is also shot at, and you don't know where it's coming from, and it kind of heightens the tension and this unknown evil that's just kind of killing everything in its path. Even though you've seen him before, it's still, scary.
Yeah. Another one that comes to mind is when he's in the motel again, and he walks into the room. I think he shoots someone in the bed. Then someone comes out with a machine gun, and then there's someone like in the bath, and sort of, it looks like he's gonna leave him and let him survive, but then he like closes the curtain, and it's not a way of like justifying the killing, because he's so ruthless that he doesn't he doesn't need that to like filter it out, but he still gives the other guy a hope and optimism. But then there's like the splattering of the blood on the
yeah, I like that. It was
that one really stuck with me. It was quite like, oh, come on.
Yeah, it felt like it was giving him a bit of hope before he died, and there's a couple ways you could interpret that. You could interpret it as like he's sort of doing a bit of a nice thing, so like he's allowing the other guy to breathe before he brutally murders him.
Yeah.
Or it could be the way I first saw it when it first appeared on screen was just he doesn't want the blood all over himself, so he's just pulling the curtain. But
it is actually showed. There was another place where he shot Woody Harrelson, and the blood was pooling on the floor, and then he moves his shoes away from it.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's supposed to mean.
Well, I think it could partly be like preserving his image, because when you have a lot of, well, like psychopaths, I guess, half of their like threatening nature is their image, and he has that very distinct look, as we mentioned. So I guess he doesn't want like pollution of that in any way. Also, I think the thing about the scene where he shoots him in the bath, it's quite reflective of quite a lot of the times where the audience are given optimism, like when you were saying we are rooting for him to die, but then he always comes out on top. So like the hope that's given to the guy in the bath, who's just like, to us, just an expendable, random character that we're only just introduced to a couple of seconds before he is killed, that is almost reflective of how the audience are meant to perceive like the chance, but equally like the hope in the film.
Yeah, like how even though you know Llewellyn's probably going to die, he might be able to get away with it.
Yeah. It's sort of similar to what that character experiences.
And also the destruction of that hope. Like even after Llewelyn dies, you hope maybe his wife will survive, and no, he goes and gets murdered too. And the kind of like the scene where Anton's like, oh, Chigurh is like, oh, I made my word or something. I'd said I gave him my word. It's like, what? It's like, I gave your husband my word that I'd kill you. It's like,
yeah.
What?
There was something about the acting in that scene that kind of just created it. Well, deep down you knew she was going to die because it was Chigurh in the room, but the way it was presented, it kind of made you feel like, oh, is she going to survive? Is he going to allow her to live? And then obviously he pulls out the coin toss, and you don't end up knowing knowing for certain if she lives or not. My suspicion is he killed her because she was being defiant and was saying, no, I'm not going to call it.
But I mean, there's ambiguity there. But equally, I think one of the key things about the Coen Brothers showing us earlier in the film that he doesn't say he could just somehow rig the coin flip or like the fact that it was shown someone actually surviving that process. Sort of, I think that's interesting that he's not entirely ruthless, and in a way, that's the way he justifies this fate for these characters, just on chance.
And it might even suggest that he sees it as their fault whether they live or die, because when he flips it, he says, "It wouldn't be fair if I call it."
Yeah.
And he seems to kind of be trying to push the blame onto them, even though, I mean, it is really just up to him whether he kills them. Because he also says at the end, like, "Oh, they always say you don't have to do this." Like, well, why doesn't? And you think, why doesn't he ever listen to them? Why does he feel like he has to do it?
Yeah.
What is he?
Yeah.
Another impactful scene is well, it pretty much immediately is before this, but it's the motel scene. It's the tracker on the money, and not only when Sugar's in the car with the tracker, but also when he discovers the tracker for the first time. You almost have that feeling well, if it would you have taken the money? Do you think if you were given that option? If you just found $2 million.
Well, and
dollars.
5 dead bodies and also a massive stash of heroin.
Well, yeah.
I think I'd probably call the police.
Yeah, I guess that's $4 million technically if you took the money and then you have the drugs too.
Oh yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I'd probably
quite difficult to sell a lot of $2 million worth of heroin.
Probably take a bit of money, stash it somewhere, and then hand the rest in.
Yeah, but I mean, it
isn't like that.
It isn't until that moment where he actually looks through. There could be a bomb in there or something.
Well, he does look.
Yeah,
he looks at the top layer, but
oh, true. Yeah, it could be like a trap, I guess.
Yeah.
And do you ever find the guy that got away? Oh yeah, he finds him lying dead by the tree, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So you still have no idea how the deal went wrong. Why did it kill everyone? And also, the sheriff says that it looks like 2 incidences. One was an execution, and the other one was like a scuffle between they shot each other in an all-out war.
Yeah.
So you never really find out what's going on there. I don't know if that's just because they couldn't be bothered, or it's supposed to show external forces outside of our power, or what. I know it is a thing where people can look too deep into films, but I think it's always interesting to hear abstract interpretations of things, and I don't think there's anything wrong with taking whatever opinion you have out of art and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's subjective, so.
Yeah, screw you if you say that we're looking too deep into it.
1,000 different movies watched by 1,000 different people. No, if 1,000 different people watch the same movie, that's 1,000 different movies. Sorry, Tarkovsky.
A modern take on.
Whoa, what do you mean we're not experts and we shouldn't be talking about this? Shut up.
I'll have you know, we watch Stalker. We are credible.
We're now movie experts. You know what? I watched Joker and I liked it. That means that you cannot disagree with me.
I have watched Star Wars, so I'm in on the pop culture.
This is technically a more mainstream film, although it didn't actually gross as much as I thought it would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it grossed just over half of Avatar's budget.
Yeah.
It's fairly low budget. It's only $25 million, but they use the budget really well.
Yeah.
All the effects, the violence and stuff. Not that it's necessarily a major part, but it all looks good, and obviously the shots are all amazing, and they got the right actors.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's budget used well.
Yeah. How would you say it compares to other Coen Brothers films and what you've watched?
So the Coen Brothers films for me sometimes become a weird haze.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've seen The Big
Fully
Lebowski
agree.
twice. I watched it again recently and really enjoyed it on the second viewing. I can't remember if I liked it on the first one.
Yeah,
That's kind of different, but it still has the theme of people going, too far into what they shouldn't.
we all watched that originally the first time, and I think we only made it halfway through for whatever reason.
Yeah,
But
'cause we had to go home.
yeah, all we remember is bowling.
Yeah.
We were just like, we'll watch the second half at some point, and then we never did.
I mean, is it? Would you say it's more comedic than this? I literally can't
Oh
remember.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's,
I can't remember anything
The Big
about it.
Lebowski is a comedy film with some great lines of dialogue. It's got really witty dialogue, very funny moments, and again, great acting. The Coen Brothers are very good at picking their actors. I also watched Burn After Reading, which to me is kind of a similar story, but with a different concept with the CIA and maybe less surreal dream sequences.
Yeah.
The similar film to this by the Coen Brothers I've seen two. The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, which is more recent. The
I've watched that.
anthology of Western stories,
Yeah.
which also somehow slower paces. It's got, I think, similar cinematography. I watched it when it came out, and I think that was 2 years ago, so it's not as fresh in my mind. But that was quite a memorable one, and I did like most of them.
Well, yeah. I mean, the thing with anthologies obviously is that some are stronger than the other. I seem to remember the last one not being as compelling.
I quite like the last one, the one where they're on the coach and they kind of turn up to a
I
house
wasn't
of
a
death or
massive fan
something.
of that one, but overall, I enjoyed it. But as you say, I don't know what it is about their films, but you don't forget about them. But it's just sort of
Yeah, I mean,
You don't
Fargo.
remember details. Right?
Yeah.
The one that I think of is Hoodsucker Proxy, although that was 3 or 4 years ago I saw that, and also Fargo, which I think I only watched last year, but I don't remember much of it. I mean, I remember more about the series, which I think I actually watched before the film. It's like I can never. I always remember that in one of them, fish fall out of the sky, and I can't remember if it's the film or the TV series. So that's
That
kind of one that's
happens in-
hazy, but I did enjoy the film. I remember enjoying it.
Yeah.
Just can't remember what happened.
yeah. We promise we're not on drugs when we're watching these films. It's just the nature of
I think
the
a lot of people
direction.
are, but
Yeah.
I can't remember anything about the Hoodsucker Proxy apart from
hula hoops jumping out of a building.
I
and
couldn't even remember the hula hoop.
Well, that's
the main.
That's the more than the Big Lebowski.
I
though.
literally-
It's literally
just
a
remember-
poster is him holding a hula hoop.
I remember. Oh yeah, true. Now I think about it. I just literally remember like that scene where the protagonist is just like falling off a building and then time stops.
Yeah, because Morgan Freeman holds a clock hand.
If I'm
Stop
being
it
honest,
moving.
until you mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, I forgot it even existed.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I mean, but I have seen a similar Coen Brothers film to this, True Grit, which is actually and like a western, set in around the Civil War. I don't know if it's during the American Civil War, but it's that kind of same era of western films. It's actually a remake of like a 60s western film, but that again has really good direction and has a slow pace with some exciting scenes. But I think I actually enjoyed No Country for Old Men more. I think it had some more tension and things. Maybe although True Grit does have, if you're after more like kind of likable characters, it's a bit more comedic, but I'm not saying it's a comedy. I just mean it's got some, you are more likely to laugh at True Grit than this.
Yeah,
But that
yeah.
doesn't mean that True Grit is a comedy.
I don't really know when you'd be laughing in this film.
I'm sure there were a couple moments, but I
couple,
can't actually
but-
remember what
yeah,
they were.
No.
it's already fading.
No, but I actually remember the plot of this, although, like you, the only thing I could remember about The Big Lebowski before watching it was him, like,
Bowling.
dreaming
Bowling.
about big bowling balls and, like, nude women or
Okay.
something.
Have you seen is it Oh Brother Where Art Thou? Is that Coen Brothers?
I don't
haven't
know.
watched it.
It's on my list.
It's on Netflix. I think that's isn't that meant to be an adaptation of The Odyssey or something?
I can't remember. I added it to my list because I thought it looked interesting.
Pretty
I
sure
didn't,
that's
I didn't
Coen Brothers.
notice
might be
if it was
completely
Coen
wrong.
Brothers. Maybe we can look it up.
Yeah.
I know it's a comedy, and I know it's an adaptation of something quite old and reimagined
Fingers crossed. Otherwise, I'll just
something new.
What's it called?
Oh brother, where art thou?
look.
Pull up the Google. Guess what it is?
It is a
It
Coen
is.
Brothers
Look
film.
at
Well
that.
done, Ollie,
Let's go.
and not me. Escape from prison and find a treasure Ulysses is buried. Oh, so yes, it looks like it is.
There you go. There's quite a lot of their films on like Netflix and
Yeah, they've got a few, but not all. It seems to be a weird rotation. Like I don't think Fargo's on there anymore.
No.
And it is based on the Odyssey. I think it's got Ulysses in, but it could be that other one. What's the other one called? There's like the Odyssey and then the other one.
The Iliad?
Yes,
Yeah.
the Iliad.
There you go. Hope you enjoyed us talking about things we don't know about there.
No, we know about them. Come
Yeah,
on.
we've all seen that film.
Which
Oh,
one?
The Other Way Out There.
Oh, yeah.
But we've just forgotten everything about it. Like,
It's
all
on
the
my
other
list. I
Coen
promise.
Brothers.
Or the list of films you've seen?
No. Oh yeah, because I've definitely seen it.
You've seen it.
Yeah.
It's list of films I've seen, but I want to watch again for no
Yeah,
reason.
just because you've forgotten about them, because
Yeah.
it's a Coen Brothers film.
Yeah.
Wait, what are we talking about this episode again? Forgotten what happened.
It's a film by the Coen Brothers.
Who
Some
are
of
they?
those films are like really hazy, then you rewatch it and it's all like really vivid and you remember loads of lines of dialogue. That's how I've got for The Big Lebowski, with like the carpet tying the room together, and that's just like your opinion, man, and the
There were
it
lines
would,
of
the
dialogue.
bowling club like stand off against 3 people from a gang, and that's when one of them dies. And anyway,
Bro,
Just to
it's
clarify,
Brolin.
we do enjoy these films. I know this may not be the most flattering review, that we just forget them like a couple of weeks after watching them, but
it's just odd. Maybe
Yeah.
it's some kind of Coen Brothers conspiracy.
Well, quick, let's give it a rating before we forget.
Oh yeah, before we forget about it.
Yeah.
It's definitely very enjoyable. If you've got to, I guess you've got to be okay with slower paces, but it works to its advantage, in my opinion. Some great shots and good acting.
Yep.
Possible discussion of things on fate. We're just looking at the episode list now to see if I can rank it according to other things. I guess I'd give it, maybe a 7.7.
Ooh.
I kind of think it's.
me, I
Yeah.
think obviously we've been talking about it for like almost 45 minutes, but I don't think it's quite has as much to say as some of the other ones higher up on that list.
Yeah.
I'd probably give it, I think it's a bit better than Hollywood, but not quite as good as You Never Really Hear. I'll just discard Psychoville, so I'll give it a 7.4.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah, I was probably gonna go similar. I'll go 7.4.
Well, not the lowest one. You technically are, but still,
High.
I'm
You're
back
still
at the
the
highest
highest.
rating,
Yeah. Nice.
and we'll calculate that for all you maths fans
Well, what did
right now. Maybe I could do it in my head, but I cannot be bothered.
No.
21.8,
what did you go at?
22.5 divided by 3. Anyone know what that is? 7.3? No, that can't be right. I've done it completely wrong. 7 plus
7.5.
Oh, 7.5. That makes
Oh,
sense.
that's
7.5.
nice. That will take Psychoville's place, because
Yeah.
Psychoville was done in the olden days.
We might have an episode evaluating those
Yeah, we've
sometime soon.
got a couple of things planned soon.
Yeah, if we hit 10 subscribers on YouTube,
Oh,
we've
don't be so unrealistic. Come on.
we've been on 9 subscribers for like
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah. Oh, it's great.
We had more listeners when we didn't make any episodes.
I know, it's so sad.
I've been thinking if we should submit a question to Buzzsprout's Q&A podcast of whether we should relaunch. I don't know. I don't know if our current listeners would like that, all 3 of you.
Well, 8 of you.
Oh, 8 of you!
Yeah, that's
Never
gone
mind.
down by 3.
It's gone down by
no.
3.
Well,
Thank
to
you.
be fair though, we did skip out a week, so maybe they have
sorry
short
about
We
that.
apologise.
We apologise. Also
We're really
apologise.
professional.
Yeah. Also apologise for the lack of clips recently, because the video editing program I used decided to kick me out and not allow me to continue using it despite having paid for it for a year.
That's fun.
Tried using customer service, it didn't happen. So learning a new one.
Just for
Right.
you.
Just for you. You specifically. you the listener right now. I love you.
Should we?
So we don't have any submissions spotlight submissions this week, and we don't have any in the works, unfortunately. So just if you are a creator and you have any form of entertainment that's preferably appropriate, can you please send it in? We'd love to hear from you, and we'll dedicate a short segment to
Maybe
reviewing
even
it.
just write a short story specifically for us to critique
Write
it.
a
How
fan
about
fiction
that?
about us.
Yeah.
Go on, write a fan fiction about Tom, Ben, and Ollie, and we will.
Thom.
Thom.
Yeah, well, it's pronounced Tom actually, silent H.
We
will.
So are you going to verify that with Thom York?
Depending on how explicit it is, we will read
You,
it out on the
you, the
podcast.
writer, can decide how it's pronounced.
Yes, it's either Tom or Thom. So why don't you just write a short story anyway, and we'll critique it just for fun. If it's good, we'll say it's good. If it's bad, we'll probably still say it's good, so you don't get annoyed at us.
But we'll also give constructive criticism.
Yeah, so do that. And talking about things that we think are good,
Ooh, segue.
recommendations time.
Well,
I have 3.
well,
I have a few, but I think I might.
Well,
I think I'm just going to do one. I'm going to save one.
I've got quite a lot, but I want to save at least one for next week.
Yeah,
So
I'm
you've
saving
got
one.
3 and you want to save.
no, I've got 3 to do right now, and I've got even more.
Do you want to
Alright,
go last then?
No, we'll alternate. You start.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So the first one is a French Netflix original film, which is animated, called I Lost My Body. It's only an hour and 20 minutes, and I think it came out 2019. It won the Audience Award at Cannes Film Festival, I think. Don't quote me on that. And it's beautiful animation, kind of semi 3D and also hand-drawn 2D. And it follows a severed hand trying to find its body, and also the original owner of the hand in his, like, how he leads up to his hand being cut off. And it's kind of like a semi-love story. It talks about themes of fate, and it's got a really cathartic ending, which is open-ended and is kind of talking about choosing your own free will. And it's really good. It is a foreign film, so you're going to have to read subtitles. And I think it's actually by the writer of Amélie, that other French film. But there isn't actually that much dialogue in it, so you've not got too much reading to do. And the soundtrack's great, narration's great, story's great, so yeah, watch it. And it's only an hour and 20 minutes. I watched it twice in a week, so do it.
Yeah, I've been interested in that for a while, so no reason to not check it out.
It's pretty weird, but yeah, watch it.
Do you want to go next?
Sure. So I'm recommending some music. It's an album called Jesse Volume 3, which is spelled
Ooh.
DJESSE by Jacob Collier. It came out today.
Jacob Collier is cool.
Yeah. It's hard to describe in terms of genre because it's sort of like a mashup of everything from like classic 60s soul to like modern hip hop and R&B, but like with a huge sound space of electronica, and
Millions of harmonies.
yeah, he's known for his use of quite complex music theory in his songs. So there are there are vocals that are comprised of like 20 different versions of him singing harmonies, and one of my favorite songs, which is called "All I Need,"
Oh, that's good.
it modulates between keys every 2 bars in the intro, and it does it seamlessly. So it's not like a pretentious listen in that it's very complex and you'll get put off by it. It's all very natural.
It's still catchy.
Yeah, and even at its most basic level, it features some popular R&B artists such as Daniel Caesar and Mahalia, and you can listen to it just no matter who you are, and you'll probably enjoy it. It's not all constant bangers. I'd say the best songs were probably released as singles, but it's well worth a listen. And while you're at it, you can check out Volume 1 and Volume 2, which are very different. That one of them's more jazz inspired, and one of them's like a sort of orchestral one. It's very much about the use of space and how that translates into music theory and stuff. So we could call it Jesse Volume 3. Back to Thom.
Back to me. Okay, second recommendation. It's a pretty big film, but although it'd come out when I thought both my parents would have seen it, they hadn't, so maybe it's not as big as I thought. It's called American History X. It follows Edward Norton, who's an amazing actor, and I always want to see more things. He is a reformed neo-Nazi, and he's trying to stop his younger brother going down the same path. And it kind of half follows the modern day, and then half is flashbacks shot in black and white, which looks really good. And it deals with themes of redemption, but also, you know, you can't just get off consequence free, even if you do redeem yourself. How people fall into this, you know, why do people become neo-Nazis? And kind of talks about hate begetting more hate, and, you know, no sides are fully pure or whatever. You know, violence makes more violence. Is really important film, I think. You might not enjoy it, say, because there's some disturbing scenes, but it's definitely well worth a watch. So also watch American History X.
Nice. My recommendation isn't something it's a book, and it's a dystopian book, which seems to be like all the books I've recommended so far, but it's not one I've read recently, so bear with me, but I chose it because it's also written by Cormac McCarthy, who actually wrote the novel that inspired No Country for Old Men.
Well done.
And it's The Road. It's quite a well-known book. Basically, it follows, and it's set in America, where basically society is just entirely dysfunctional, and there's the only remaining survivors are either like serial killers, people that like exploit and burgle the travellers on the roads, or the travellers themselves. And it follows like a father and his son on this journey to, well, like, it's never really clear where they're going, but somewhere brighter, let's say. And it's written in an interesting style because it doesn't have any chapters, and it doesn't have any punctuation. Well, it has like obviously full stops and stuff, but none of the dialogue is punctuated, and a lot of it consists of dialogue between the father and the son. Interestingly, apparently, Cormac McCarthy, who wrote it, actually used quite a lot of the dialogue between himself and his own son as inspiration for it. And just because of that style, I think basically it's meant to represent a society that is having to resort to the bare basics of survival, and therefore any sort of flowery language or punctuation is entirely omitted, and it's just stripped down to the basics. And that definitely it does definitely help it like flow, and it's quite an easy read to say that it's got such a well, like, it's set in a society where like it's completely dysfunctional, and it's almost unimaginable in a current context. But yeah, so I'd recommend that, The Road.
Groovy. Okay, my final recommendation, which is also probably pretty big. It's a Studio Ghibli film, Princess Mononoke, which is kind of about like this boy who's trying to save both the forest from being destroyed and also the city, which is being attacked by the forest. That doesn't sound like it makes any sense because I've not told you what genre it is. It is fantasy, but it's more Japanese fantasy, which means that you get like all the cool fantasy elements of weird creatures and cool fight scenes and stuff like that, but kind of more interesting and different to stuff you've seen. So there's a lot more to do with spiritual elements from Japanese culture. So kind of little cute tree spirits, and there's the spirit of the forest, which is like this massive lumbering thing at night, which people are trying to get the head of so they can become immortal. And it doesn't just have the kind of standard what you'd think it was, where man should stop developing and just live in the forest and hug trees. It does have a bit more of a complex message, and it's up to interpretation. So it's quite interesting, and obviously the animation is beautiful, as with all Studio Ghibli films. It's got great characters, and just there's some of the monsters are just cool. It's actually got quite good fight scenes, and it is fairly long. I think it's 2 hours and 15 minutes, but it never really drags, or it doesn't to me, and it's just really enjoyable while also having that kind of man and nature theme going on. So it's worth a watch, especially if you like Japanese stuff. But even if you don't, you should watch it as well.
The animation.
It is an animation, yeah. It's on Netflix if you want to watch it.
Need to expand our animation category. We've got
Yeah.
one film currently on the podcast.
I'm trying to go through all the Studio Ghibli films, so I don't know. But I don't know if you want to do one for the podcast. I don't know what would be a good one to do. I can have a look. The one that I really want to watch is like one of the only ones that isn't on Netflix. Because I thought that Netflix got all the Studio Ghibli films, but like the one that, well, I mean, Spirited Away won a load of awards, but the other critically acclaimed one, called Grave of the Fireflies, isn't on there, and it's really sad that it's not on there. It's also supposed to be a really sad film, but so I really want to watch that, and it's not on Netflix. So, grr, screw you, Netflix.
I mean, you could buy the DVD.
No.
Who wants to do that?
You wouldn't buy a DVD.
You wouldn't buy a car.
5 recommendations there.
Yeah, and we're still under an hour.
Go us.
Groovy. Well, we're talking about animation films, and we need more in our repertoire. So if you can think of any animation films, or just films in general you'd like us to watch, you can contact us and we'll have a look.
We'll
Probably do it
fulfill
in a
your
future
wishes.
episode.
Please don't say something like Secret Life of Pets.
Yeah. Just like give that a passive aggressive -1.
No, we don't want to watch that. Don't recommend like Despicable Me 3 or any of them.
Yeah, we'd prefer like not
Please say
Yeah.
cool animation film. I mean, if you say Wall-E, I'm fine watching Wall-E again. I don't mind.
Shrek.
And when I say Secret Life of Pets, that'll be me having to watch that again because I saw it in the cinema at
Yeah,
Skipper
Yeah, but have you
Awards
seen
Day
Secret
School.
Life of Pets 2?
I can't say I have.
No, I can't say I am.
Thankfully.
And if you
Well,
send
actually,
in,
no.
if you send in minions, then there won't be an Entertainment of Excellence podcast.
If you send in minions, you're gonna have to unsubscribe. I'm sorry.
No.
No,
Down to 8.
9 subscribers.
We'll block you though.
Speaking of which, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you are watching us there and you like what we do. Because follow us on social media are nice, and you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at EV Podcast.
And all podcast platforms, or
But,
at least most.
But YouTube subscribers are cool because when we get to the 50 listeners on podcast platforms, we are going to do a special Blade Runner 2049 episode, which is one of the lost ones from 2018.
Yes.
How exciting.
How very
Finally.
exciting. I'm sure you'd all love to know that.
A sequel to the Blade Runner episode, finally.
We'll
Featuring
invite,
Thomas.
we'll even invite Thom back on as a special guest.
Maybe it will be like Blade Runner 2049 itself, a sequel that no one wanted but is surprisingly good.
Excuse me, you giving spoilers?
Maybe.
Maybe no, you play special guest.
Do you think
Oh,
we'll
I'm
talk
sorry.
about it for longer than 15 minutes? Unlike
Yeah, we need to
the
talk about
Blade
it for
Runner
5 minutes.
episode.
Longer than 5
Quizzes. Anyway, if you want to get that reference, you can go listen to our older episodes.
Don't do that. Don't listen to Ben.
Start episode 5.
No. Yeah. Start episode 5. Is that a Quiet Place one?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Start episode 5.
Yeah, we might have something in store regarding the older episodes. So keep your eyes open. Won't be long before we're on 25 episodes, which will be a pretty cool milestone.
Quarter quell.
Nice. Anyway, follow us on Instagram and Twitter. You can subscribe to us here on YouTube or on most podcast platforms. You can find us on our website, entertainmentexcellence.weebly.com, and that is cool because we have a mailing list there which you can subscribe to. And when you subscribe to that, you'll have access to our schedule, so you know what we're doing up to like a month in advance. We'll also be creating a list of all recommendations with links to buy them or view them or stream them or whatever. And it's just a cool way to keep in contact. So do that. Not much else to say. Thanks for listening. Alright, see you.
Alright, see ya. Yeah, that's interesting.